Okay, so this is just going to be a video to talk through how to run a sim in your league. So you can see right now, obviously this is not UABA, it's a different league, uh, but I'm signed into the commissioner account on this league. Um, you always want to make sure that you have a separate commissioner's account from your GM accounts, because any account that has commissioner access has access to seeing like the hidden ratings that you don't want your league members being able to see, because you obviously only want your league members to be able to see the ratings that their scouts provide for the players. So I'm already in my account. The first thing you always want to do is, like, once you sign in, it's going to take you to this page, to just your GM profile page. Go over to commissioner's office and do the check team exports. So you're going to import all teams and start the download. And while this is running, the settings for getting access to the commissioner account for it to be able to connect and pull exports are something that we'd have to get either from Andy or from Dave, the Stats Plus guy. That's not something, but like, I'm not going to show how to get to that stuff in this video because I don't know the UABA information for that. So this, sometimes it goes quick, sometimes it goes slow. One of the things that Andy always tracked when he did this was who's exporting each sim, because it relates to how much cash that you accumulate in game over the season. So I have a spreadsheet that I also track exports for in this league. So I'm going to jump over to my spreadsheet where I track stuff. So I just have a list of all the teams, and then I fill out when they miss an export. Andy does it the opposite way. He marks down when people do export in his spreadsheet. So I just come over here, I scan through the teams. So in my league, Lincoln didn't export. Some of these teams are vacant, so I don't really care whether or not they export. Obviously, they can't export if they're vacant. But Lincoln, yeah, that's just it. So I'm gonna come over, mark down that Lincoln didn't export. Don't need that file anymore. The next thing I always check is I go to the DFA report, because anytime a player is going to expire, run out of DFA days during the sim, it prevents the sim from advancing, and it manually kicks you out of whatever you're doing and takes you back to the team page with that has the player whose DFA time is going to expire, and makes you deal with it before you're able to advance to the next day. So in this league, I sim 5 days at a time. So any team that has less than 5 days is going to be dealt with by the commissioner. For example, some leagues release the players automatically. Some leagues, the commissioner tries to assign the player to the major league roster or minor league roster. But you'll notice that because I sim 5 days, none of these players on here have less than 5 days. So there's nothing for me to do with this. Obviously, you can see this team up here does, but this is a team in a different league inside our game world that is not a human-owned team. So the AI handles this team. After the DFA, there's other rule violations that you might want to check depending on the league. One of the things that we check in this league is we have a salary cap. So I go to the finance page and I look at everyone's payroll. To do that, you just go to your league drop down, reports and info, and then finances report. Our payroll, I just look at the payroll. Our salary cap here is 3.12 million. So no one has exceeded that amount. So I have nothing to record. That's the last thing I check. So at this point, what I would do is I just go in to start the live sim. So starting the live sim is going to require that you have the Stats Plus app downloaded, which only commissioners download this app. So that's something that you're going to need to get. And I can send you the link for that. There's a different link whether you own a Mac or a PC. But the settings for this, Dave from S Plus, Dave is the guy who created S Plus. He would talk you through how to set up all the settings for the league. But once you have the settings, this is the page that you'll see on Stats Plus. For the real-time sim to work, the live sim, you need to be in the game first and start the sim. So what I do is I go to the schedule page just to make sure everything is cool. Okay, I'm on the right date. And then I just hit start real-time simulation. And then it's going to start running. Once that starts, I go back to Stats Plus and I click start here. And then I notify the league. I go over to Slack and I say, hey, everybody, the live sim is starting. And then a link pops up so they can watch the live sim if you want. At the end of each day, once all the games are completed, so it kind of requires that you sit there and watch the games as they're happening. But once all the games are done, you want to go to your league dropdown, logs, and then go to the injury log. Once you access the injury log page, you can go to play and then finish today. The reason to go to the injury log page is so that any injuries that occur in game during that day will post to Slack. If you don't access the injury log, then injuries won't post. All the game events will happen. It'll say, you know, like here's the highlights, here's the final scores, and it will tell you so-and-so got injured, but it will never tell you like what the injury was. And people would just have to see that when they download the file at the end of the sim. So it's kind of optional whether or not you want to have the injuries show up in Slack. Not every commissioner goes to the injury log every day before advancing to the next day. Some do, some don't. It's kind of what your personal preference is. So then after you've advanced through all the days that you're going to sim through, you would come back to your commissioner account profile. I go to manager options and then come back to the commissioner's office. And then you want to create and upload a file checked. And in order to update the Stats Plus website, you want to have export data to CSV files checked. The configuration for this and the league file settings are things that we'd have to get that information from Andy. We might have to, or possibly Dave from Stats Plus. But essentially, the league file settings are how much information you want to upload in each sim. And it's generally recommended that you include information for 2 sim periods. So in UEBA, we sim 7 days at a time. So it would probably be a good idea to put 14 for all these. Sometimes it's also suggested that you just change the messages to 0. 0 would mean the entire history of messages, because sometimes messages don't add a large amount to the file size. And it's not a big deal to include the entire history of messages, because sometimes if someone misses an export, misses a sim to download, and they want to, like if they don't download the file and you only have messages from the previous sim sent through each file that you upload for the people to download in your league, then all their messages will show up blank. So it's probably recommended just to leave this as 0. But if you set all of these to 0, then the file size is going to get really, really huge really fast. So you don't want to do that. You want to keep this as the length of 1 or 2 sim periods at most. This is just what information you want to include in the file. This is the pathway on your computer where your file is saved, and it's always directed to the import-export folder for your game. So this pathway basically would be the exact same for UEBA, except it would say ueba.lg instead of the league that I'm in right now. And once you set this one time, you never have to change these settings again. They're always just going to be saved. The data configuration for CSV, that's something that Dave from Stats Plus would walk you through. And that's another thing where you set it once and then you never have to worry about it again. So when you're done with the sim, you make sure these things are checked. Then you just hit execute. It'll go through some time to process it. Once it's done processing everything, then you would send a message to, well, it's going to automatically ping the Slack group and let everybody know that the file has been updated, but you can also send like a manual message, like Andy always sends a manual message after the fact. Say, hey, everyone, the sim's done. You can go download now. But as soon as that automatic pinged message shows up in Slack, it's safe for people to download the file. Another thing is, in order to update the Stats Plus website, when this is finished, you would come back to Stats Plus, and you need to click the upload CSV to S Plus. And that will take a little bit, depending on the speed of your internet connection. For me, it takes about 10-15 minutes to update. Some people it's faster, some people it's slower. It just really depends on the speed of your internet. While the live sim is running, so I'm going to go ahead and start my sim in this league. So I'm going to hit start simulation. All our games in this league are set to start at 9 a.m. So it's 7 a.m. right now. I'm going to just speed up the factor a little bit just to get it moving. I'm going to come over to Stats Plus, start it. You always want to start Stats Plus after you've started the sim in the game. Then I'm going to come over to Slack, go to my league, notify everyone that the sim is running. And this is the link that will show up, because every time I've set it up, so anytime it says sim is live, this link will show up. That's your live sim link. Then I'm going to come back here, just speed it up a little bit until I get until 9 a.m. And at 9 a.m. now I've set it back to the speed that I want to run the sim at. It's going to go through all the games. Once the day is finished, then I would go to my injury log. So the log, the injury log. I'm not going to do it right now because the day is not finished. After the injury log, then I go to play and finish the day. And then you just repeat that process for every day of the sim. And then once you're done with all the days, then you upload the file, which is back from Manager Options, Commissioner's Office page. When you're done with all the days in the game, you want to come back over here and hit stop, because you can't upload. Notice that this is grayed out. You can't upload the CSV until you stop this. So you start this when your games are running. Once all the games are done running for the whole sim period, you hit stop, and you upload stuff. That's pretty much it. It's probably a lot, but it's something that you kind of get in the habit of, and then it's pretty easy going forward from there.